I'm honored to share with you a conversation that I had about 2 months ago with one of my new favorite clients, a wonderful woman, 32 years old. It's my hope that what I shared with her is a help to you the way it was to her. She's 32 years old. She's a mom of one. And she's in a 2-year relationship. And ironically, the appointment was arranged by her boyfriend. Her boyfriend has seen me on TikTok and thought that she would listen to me. When I turned on the camera, they were both there. And so I thought it was a couples session, but he just wanted to make the introduction. He wanted to meet me. He said hello. He said, "Doc, I set up this appointment because I'm hoping that she will listen to you because she will not listen to me." And she was kind of looking at me a little mean. She had a mean mug on her face. No big deal. And so he kisses her on the cheek, gets up, walks, leaves out the house. In fact, he said he was going to go to the gym. So he left. And so I said, "Well, ma'am, what's going on?" And she said, "Well, he has a problem with my attitude and temper." And says, "I don't know how to talk to people." Now, I don't like to make assumptions, but she did not come on the camera looking incredibly pleasant. But we don't know what day people are having. We don't know what people are going through. And I don't make assumptions about people. I ask questions. And so she said, "Doc, I've never met you." She said, "But I do trust him." And she said, "I just don't buy this whole idea of him just having this huge issue with my attitude and temper." She said, "I've been on my own since the age of 16. And I've had to do everything for myself. And I met him 2 years ago. And he's great to me. He's great to my son. He's an upstanding man." I said, "So what's the problem?" She said, "I went through some issues after I was abandoned by my parents and my loved ones. And again, having to be on my own was not easy. And he came in and he's a great listener. He's a great communicator. He doesn't try to take advantage of me." I said, "Do you do the same to him?" She said, "I think so." I said, "Well, something's not connecting." I said, "He thinks you're a poor communicator and that you talk to him any kind of way, has a problem with your attitude and temper, but you think everything is cool. So what's the disconnect?" And she interrupts and then goes on to talk for about 12 minutes. And she just goes on and on. "I think that's part of the problem. He just doesn't understand me. He doesn't get me." And, she starts getting emotional. "People just don't get me," and things like that. And "I'm not that bad of a person." And she's going on and on and on and just going. And finally, I'd had enough. After about 10 minutes, I said, "Ma'am, do me a favor." And I was getting ready to make a statement. And she said, "No, Doc, I need you to do me a favor and just hear me out." She said, "That's part of the problem. Nobody listens to me." I said, "No." I said, "Be quiet and listen to me. Because you just contradicted yourself. And you said he was a great communicator and a great listener. So people are listening to you." I said, "So there's something else going on here." I said, "So you need to listen to me." And I said, "Let me just be very clear to you. My job is not to validate you or make you feel seen. Stop reading the internet. Because validation and the need to make you feel seen is only for people who are honest about where they are. And you're not being honest." I said, "I've listened to you go on and rant for 12 minutes and even interrupt me. So I can imagine as a professional, if you interrupt me, what your conversation approach looks like with him." She starts getting upset. She's crying. I said, "Great. I'm going to let you cry." I said, "But listen to this." I said, "The first problem is you talk too much. That's the number one problem." And I said, "I'm going to prove this using an example called the faucet in the cup." She's crying. She's looking down. I said, "A few years ago, I had a leaky faucet. And that leaky faucet over about a 4 or 5 month period of time cost me an extra $600 to $700 on my water bill. It was a slow drip. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I was putting off getting it corrected. And finally, I had somebody come in, take a look at it. I tried to go inside and take the parts loose and put it back together. I couldn't stop it. And had somebody come in and take a look at it. They put a stop to it and it was over. So the guy said to me, who fixed it, he said, "Call the utility company because they will probably take off some money from your water bill. Your water bill's probably been higher. I said, it's been pretty high, but I didn't think this leak was enough. He said, no doubt. So I called, and that's when they ran the numbers and said, yeah, Dr. Talley, between $600-700 you probably paid in excess because of that. And they made some adjustments. I said, do you know why that faucet was leaking? She said, no, sir. I said it was leaking because it had a screw loose inside. That faucet could not stop dripping because something inside of the faucet was not tightened. I said, ma'am, you can't control your mouth because something inside of you is loose and needs to be tightened. She starts crying. I said, good. I said, now you're feeling this. I said, that's great. I said, but let me tell you something else about the faucet. I said, if you take that faucet and cut on the water to put water in a cup, let's say it's a red Solo cup. You put that cup under the water. What's going to happen if that water's too hot? She said, it's going to probably melt the cup. I said, why? She said, because the cup can't handle scorching hot water. I said, interesting. I said, this describes effective communication. Whether you're the faucet and he's the cup, or if he's the faucet and you're the cup. The job of the person talking who is describing how he or she feels is to, number one, not put the cup under running water, but to keep the cup on the side, cut on the water, and do what first? She said, set the temperature. I said, why? She said, because you want to make sure the water is not coming out too hot. She's starting to dry her tears. I said, exactly. Now that I've got your attention, when you talk to him, your first job is to set your tone and temperature. Don't put the cup under the water. He's the cup. You're the faucet. And the water you're pouring into him is the information that you have to communicate. If that water's too hot, even if he wants to hold it, he won't be able to receive it. He'll have a meltdown. I said the same thing is true on your end. This goes for both sides. This has nothing to do with gender. If he comes off too hot to you, you're going to have a meltdown. I said, that's a big problem of what's going on as it relates to you communicating with him, because you indicated he listens to you and communicates with you well, correct? She said, yes, sir. I said, so what you have to do is the same thing you probably taught your son as a little kid. When you have to talk, run your finger under the water. Make sure that water is set right, and then put the cup, i.e. his ears, under the water and let him hear you. I said, does that make sense? She said, yes, sir. I said, let me tell you his job. His job as the cup is not to respond when you're pouring. How many times have you ever seen a cup look up at the water and say, hey, stop pouring now? She started laughing. I said, good. I said, you've never seen that, right? She said, no, sir. I said, why? She said, because the cup's job is not to tell the water how much to pour. I said, and it is not our job when we're listening to someone to tell them what to say. She leaned her head back. She started crying a little bit more, a little bit harder this time. I said, what's that cup's job, ma'am? She said, to be quiet and take the water. I said, if people communicated this way, if the cup stopped trying to interrupt the water and by pouring the water back out, if the cup started just sitting there and receiving what the water was pouring, especially if the water has set the right temperature, you know how much easier it would be to get through disagreements, arguments. She said, yes, sir, you're absolutely right. I said, ma'am, you got to work through these past issues, but you got to be honest about them. And you have not been honest about those past issues. And so I'm not going to validate you. My job is to put a mirror in front of your face today. And so this conversation is about putting a mirror in your face. Fix the faucet so you can function right. Because if you fix the leak, fix what's broken inside of you. If you set the temperature and the tone when you talk, I promise you communication is going to be better. By this time, ironically, the guy busts in the door. She jumps up off the camera, starts hugging him, crying. And they're doing well. They checked in last week. I hope this story made sense. If it did, type church in the comments with 3 R's. And then remember, you've got 2 jobs. 1, be better today than what you were yesterday. And 2, don't forget what I told you. What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Zeb. Listen, I've been dying to make this announcement for a very long time now, and I'm pleased to say that Inspire Nation has officially launched. Yes, we finally got a Facebook and YouTube community group where we're going to have exclusive content, exclusive shorts, exclusive discussion prompts, where we're going to engage with other people literally around the world who are on the same healing journey that we're on. I need you to go find these pages right now on Facebook and YouTube. Inspire Nation, follow the page, join the group, introduce yourself, and be prepared to link up with literally thousands of people around the world who are on the same healing journey, who are looking for the same resources, and who want to also be surrounded with other like-minded individuals who are growing in the same direction as you are. I'm so excited about this because it's the beginning of some great things I can't talk about right now. Listen, you got two jobs. One, be better today than what you were yesterday. And two, don't forget what I told you.